I'm afraid I've got PowerPoint slides because I'm not so confident to just sit and talk in front of you all for 10, 15 minutes. So I'm just going to talk you through my pathway into a career for medicine and what led me to choose that pathway. So it all starts off with this little cheeky tomboy girl who's at the front of this picture. I was a middle child. I was a bit like Jamie, actually, middle child, cheeky nightmare to both my siblings and my parents. And a tomboy, and at this stage in life, all I wanted to do was be a boy and become a soldier. But I'm going to tell you how she became a paediatrician. So I was born in London, went to school at Garden House in London, and then we moved out to Gloucestershire when I was 8 years old. And I went to this tiny prep school called Croft Hall School, which had 56 people in the whole school. That's me in the top row in my final year, where there were 6 of us in my final year at school. And in the bottom row, in the red smock, is Jamie's older brother, Alexander, who I used to put on his smock every morning. So their older sister, Tash, was one of my best friends growing up. I had a passion for young children and was always involved with young children from a very early age. I then went on to Down House, where my first love definitely became lacrosse. My whole life at Down was revolved around lacrosse, and took me to Australia, America. It's how I met my husband, because I played lacrosse with his sister. And yeah, that was my love at Down House. But I continued to adore young children, and this was even confirmed further when I became a godmother at 13 to this gorgeous little girl, Georgia, who is now an adult herself, scarily enough. But then these 2 men came into my life. So you're probably all far too young to have a clue who either of these characters are. But George Clooney was Dr. Doug Ross. He was a consultant paediatrician in the TV series ER, which I was mad about. And Robin Williams, the late Robin Williams, was Patch Adams in a film, which, and they both turned me to pediatrics. And that's where my love and thought for pediatrics for my career began. So I chose to do my 3 separate sciences at GCSE, and then went on to do biology and chemistry A-level, because you have to do chemistry, and there was no way I was going to do physics, so I did geography and general studies as my other 2 A-levels. And then once I decided I wanted to do medicine, after I'd done my GCSEs, I had to think about what work experience I was going to do. So these were my 2 kids when they were a lot younger, dressing up in daddy's shirt and tie. And so what I think of as work experience is them dressing up in their father's clothes. So for my work experience, I started off with, for Gold Duke of Edinburgh Award, I went and worked for Riding for the Disabled charity for children with disabilities, which was an amazing experience, and really confirmed that working with children was what I wanted to do in the future. I also worked in a local residential care home, care of the elderly home in our local village. And then I was really, really lucky when one of my friends in my house at Down House, her father was a consultant paediatrician at Great Ormond Street Hospital. And so I got to go to the country's leading centre for treating sick children with the widest range of specialists under one roof. And they even have their own radio station. They're just the most amazing place if you want to find out whether paediatrics is right or medicine is right, and you have a passion. Then that was just an incredible opportunity to go and do my work experience there. I decided while at school that I definitely, if I was going to go in for a career of medicine, I wanted a gap year. And so I decided to use my gap year for half of it to have some fun and half of it to also convince the university that I should have a gap year because I was going to gain valuable experience during my gap year for work experience towards my medical degree. So I spent 10 weeks in Canada becoming a ski instructor, and that has really given me the foundations for a long career of mentoring junior doctors and medical students and teaching and learning the real basics of teaching, because we had to qualify and get teaching qualifications to become instructors. That has been a really valuable experience for me. And then I had a very, very harrowing month in a Romanian orphanage. And this completely changed me for life, my experience in Romania. I actually had to come home a week early from my trip out there because I found it so harrowing, and it felt like each time we got the children out to play and interact with them, it was like giving a dog a bone and then you were taking it away. And I couldn't really work out how we were going to have a sustained result from this and what we were achieving by just daily interaction that was then going to be taken away. I came home trying to convince my mum to adopt all the children in the orphanage. Luckily now there's some amazing charities such as Hope and Homes for Children, which are trying to get these really vulnerable children out of orphanages and into foster homes and being adopted, which is incredible. And so I have huge support for charities such as these. After my gap year, I went on to Leeds University, where I studied medicine. I chose Leeds because I knew that I wanted to go to a university rather than a medical school in London. I wanted to have friends outside of medicine. And it was a traditional course, which meant you did 3 years of studying in lecture theatres, and then you went out onto the wards and did 2 years of ward work. And when I went to medical school, it was very much a time where things were changing, and the new courses were only just starting. And so I was keen to do something that had been long-standing. I also chose to do an intercalated degree, which meant that instead of 5 years at university, I was there for 6 years. And I came away with a BSc as well as MBCHB for medicine. And that just meant I was more competitive to go straight into the workplace in London, where a lot of the medical schools offer a BSc as part of their programme anyway. Sorry, pressing the wrong button. I then came down to London and got married to my husband, who had been patiently waiting for the 6 years that I was at university and my whole gap year. And so came back to London, got married and started my career in medicine in London. And this is my first day on the ward. So I went to the Royal Surrey County Hospital, where most of the doctors there had all been from London medical schools. And so it was very difficult to get a job there because you usually have your first year as a doctor in the town where you qualified. And it was just the most fantastic experience, the camaraderie of all these junior doctors starting like rabbits in headlights, absolutely terrified. And they will be also friends that you remember for life. We were at a stage as well where we do horrendous shifts, we do horrendous things. There was no European Working Time Directive, but we got hospital accommodation and it was really, really incredible. And I loved my first years at Royal Surrey. I then went on to specialise. So everyone starts off doing general medicine. You have to do adult medicine, even if you want to go into paediatrics. And then got into paediatrics, which is what I wanted to do eventually. Paediatrics has given me some real highs and lows. I mean, there is nothing harder than seeing a child die and the pain and misery that causes the family. But there are also amazing highs, and children are incredibly resilient and they bounce back so, so quickly. I remember a friend of ours' child was born with a kidney problem and had to have a kidney transplant when he was about 2 years old. His father donated one of his kidneys. And the boy was up on the ward in the playroom the next day after his kidney transplant, and the father was intensive care for over a week. So children really do have the most amazing resilience. This little boy, Alfie, is a patient I will never, ever forget. So it was one of my first paediatric jobs. I was working at St George's Hospital. I was working for the paediatric surgical team at the time as a junior doctor on the ward. And he came into St George's A&E 18 days old, having been referred from his local hospital with a suspected surgical problem. He was vomiting and he was really, really sick. And I went with the parents to the scanner where he was diagnosed with a very severe twisted gut. He went straight to theatre that day and he lost most of his bowel, so he had hardly any bowel at all, which resulted in him having something called short gut syndrome, and he had to be fed into the veins for a very long time. So I was on the paediatric surgical ward for 4 months, and he was there for the duration of the time that I was on the ward, and he had numerous submissions back and forth into the paediatric intensive care and was a very, very sick little boy. And it was very sad when I left that job. I was actually went on maternity leave and had my son. And Alfie was still in St George's Hospital for a long time after I left. But Alfie now, as you can see in this photo, is a very grown-up, healthy, smiley 13-year-old boy. And I get a message every day, every year on his birthday and on Christmas from his parents with a photo of Alfie, which just cheers me up every single time and makes you realise how amazing this career is. There's also other things that people do within medicine, and Pediatrics has famous hospitals and even famous people. So you might recognise Dr. Ranj. He works on This Morning now, and I job shared with him 10 years ago when he went part-time. I was part-time because of my children, and he went part-time to job share with me that year because he'd had an idea in the shower that he wanted to set up a TV programme called Get Well Soon, which was a TV show to educate young children about health and hospitals. And he has come a really long way, and it's a real proud story that he still works in the NHS at Evelina Children's Hospital, and yet he can do everything that he does on TV and in publishing and everything else that he does as well. So that's really lovely that he can do that. I've also not taken a very direct route to becoming a consultant, so you may wonder why I've only recently become a consultant, having gone to Leeds University in 1998. It can be a lot quicker path, and there are even people who have done medicine as a postgraduate degree who have become a consultant way quicker than me. But I've been part-time for a very long time. I had children in my second year as a paediatrician, and I've been part-time, so taken double the course. But I've also taken time out to do a master's degree in advanced paediatrics, which just gave me a competitive edge with job applications and a good insight into research. And I then decided to take a year out to do something called a Darcy Fellowship in Clinical Leadership. And this is a high-profile programme designed to develop leaders from multi-professional backgrounds and the ability to undertake complex change initiatives. What that basically means is they want to get more doctors, nurses, physios into leading the NHS rather than just having managers coming in and leading it. They want to have people on the shop floor who know what they're doing, to be taught the management skills and the leadership skills to become the chief execs of hospitals, to lead change and to make a difference. And that was a really, really valuable year. And this is my cohort of Darcy Fellows at Imperial College, where we worked at St Mary's Hospital. And and this was the biggest cohort they'd ever had in one hospital. And it was really fantastic experience, and we got a postgraduate certificate from it. And then I finally became a consultant paediatrician. So September 2019, I became a consultant, and I worked for a year at Chelsea and Westminster Hospital as a consultant. And it was probably one of my proudest days when I had my scrubs with my name and title on them. And then decided to leave my amazing training in London behind, and move closer to home, where I've got a permanent job now at St Peter's Hospital in Chertsey. And I now have my name on my door in my office, which is a very proud moment. So I hope that talking to you and people will inspire the future young people here today to go into medicine. So this is my two kids at Westfield a few years ago in London at Kidzania, trying out what mummy does. And I just really hope that I can inspire you all to go into medicine. If you are interested in medicine, then I would recommend reading books such as This Is Going to Hurt, Do No Harm, Two for Joy, When Breath Becomes Air. There's so much literature out there now that gives you a real insight into patient experience as well as doctors' experiences. And obviously, like my passion for ER and Patch Adams, there are loads of TV programmes that I am still passionate about and watch, like Grey's Anatomy and New Amsterdam.